Hello, everyone. I'm going to give about a minute before we start, but welcome to today's session on Massachusetts Success Fund in Action, where we're going to dive into mentorship models that drive student outcomes. My name is Christine. I will be the MC today, but you're going to hear this intro from me again. In the meantime, while we give that minute for people to trickle in, go ahead and put your name in the chat. Give me some reactions as well. I'd love to hear from everyone. Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for coming today. Go ahead and put your name in the chat. Introduce yourself to your colleagues, your fellow colleagues. I know this is very state specific, so you might know each other. Hello, everyone. Welcome. All right. We'll go ahead and kick it off. Again, please go ahead and put your names in the chat. Welcome each other or sit back and relax and listen to today's group. Again, today we're going to be talking about the Massachusetts Success Fund in Action, where we're going to talk about mentorship models that drive student outcomes. And you can go ahead and move forward, Erin. I do have a few housekeeping rules. You can put all your names in the chat. Unfortunately, you're with the Zoom webinar, you'll be unmuted, but that is okay. All your questions that come into the chat, we will make sure we respond to. And if you have any reactions that you like, we'd love for you to drop an emoji or anything that you're really resonating with. And yeah, so with that being said, I'm going to go ahead and kick it off to our host for today. This is Erin Callison. All right.
Hi, everyone. My name is Erin Callison. I'm an account executive here at Mentor Collective. I serve the Northeast region. I'm based in Maine, and my role at Mentor Collective is to support new and current partnerships. I've been at Mentor Collective for 4 years. I've supported our partners on customer success side as they implement their programs and their initiatives with us, and also am supporting our new and existing partners. So get the pleasure of working with some of our panelists today. So I'm excited to introduce them. And Shelley, do you want to kick us off? And you are on mute.
Um, I am Shelley Nicholson. I'm the Dean of Students here at Greenfield Community College. I'm excited to be here with you. And full disclosure, I did not buy into the Mentor Collective idea. I was like, why do we need this? What's going on? Holly's like, you need to sit and listen. And I'm so glad I did because it's been an amazing experience.
Thanks, Shelley. Tiffany, do you want to go next?
Hello, everyone. My name is Tiffany Lodano. I'm director of the Success Scholars Program here at Middlesex Community College, and I attended multiple Mentor Collective presentations at conferences, and I worked really, really hard to get the buy-in from my campus, and we're very happy with it. So I'm happy to speak to you all today.
And Holly.
Hi, I'm Holly Kosiski. I'm the coordinator of student success at Greenfield Community College, and we have just wrapped up our first semester in partnership with Mentor Collective. So I'm excited to let you all know how it's going.
Great. And a little bit more about Mentor Collective, and then we'll share our agenda for today's conversation. So we got our start back in 2014, supporting international students to foster meaningful connections as they come to campus. For example, Tufts was one of our first partners in the state, and then have since then really seen ourselves as a catalyst for student success. We have worked with 180 other institutions. We're backed by the Lumina and Strata Foundation, so our goal is to serve as many students as possible. Part of the reason we talk a lot about the word scale here at Mentor Collective. And we support campuses in a variety of mentorship workflows. So whether that is goals around student success, career readiness, or workforce development, or professional readiness, we support kind of across the mentorship journey. Our partners also share back lots of impact data with us. What you're seeing on the screen is coming directly from our partners. On average, folks are seeing a 6% retention rate increase, an 8% increase in sense of belonging. And some of our partners also target melt or yield as a goal for their partnership with us. And we're seeing a 30% melt rate decrease. So really excited to share some of that data with you today. And we will get a little bit more into the landscape and how we see mentorship as positioned on your campus, a little bit more about the Mentor Collective approach. And then we will have an opportunity to hear from Middlesex and Greenfield a lot more on how they developed their peer mentorship on their campus and some of the impacts that they're seeing as they continue to work with us. So let's talk about why mentorship. We know that offering resources is just not enough. You all know this as well. We know that offering resources does not mean students are going to take advantage of them, and that utilization is ultimately key to seeing impact. We also know that students always want more and more support, but they're not accessing the existing supports available to them. 82% of students are seeking more proactive and personalized support. And at the same time, they are often seeking support in non-traditional areas. So students tell us that they are 9 times more likely to share information with peers rather than staff. This is where mentorship really becomes part of the solution. So we know students trust other students and their peers. And so we want to make peer-driven mentorship accessible and scalable on your campus. So let's talk about engagement because we know that utilization is great, but engagement is critical. So one of the benefits of working with 180 other institutions is we get a lot of information from students in terms of barriers to engagement and what causes them to engage or not engage in their mentorship. 73% of mentees report that they sometimes feel hesitant to reach out, citing reasons for social anxiety and not knowing what to talk about. You all hear that probably from students all the time. Well, I don't really know how a mentor could support me, or I don't really know how my advisor could help me. And we know mentors feel the same way. So feeling unqualified or not sure, knowing the expectations of a mentorship. And that's where Mentor Collective can really jump in and support. We see ourselves as not just investing in the journey to be matched, but we also see ourselves in really helping students make meaning out of their mentorship. And so we'll talk a little bit more today about how that happens in our approach. But one of the things that we talk a lot about is the rule of 3. We know that when pairs log 3 or more conversations, they're seeing an increase in their retention. On average, we see our partners are seeing an 11% increase in retention for pairs that are logging 3 or more conversations. So that's where that engagement piece is really, really critical and something that we are often keeping an eye on. So I want to share a little bit more about our approach. So what you're seeing on the screen is everything that's happening after a pair is matched. Our campus partners today will talk a little bit more about the matching and how they develop mentorship on their campus. But what does Mentor Collective provide once folks are matched? First and foremost, we want to decrease that concern of not knowing what to talk about. So we are supporting pairs with generative prompts so that they know what they can ask their mentor and how to get the conversation going. These are specific to the student, not just talk about your career interests, but talk about how you decided you wanted to become a nurse or you went back to school to get that nursing degree. Secondly, we're providing calendar syncing. So in the ways that we all schedule all the time with each other, we are providing pairs an opportunity to sync their calendars and see shared availability. So that way they can schedule directly within the platform so that not just that they have a very clear understanding of when their meeting is going to happen, but also because we know that schedules change and things come up. And so we want to make sure that they have as much as possible to schedule their conversation, whether that's virtually or in person. And then Mentor Collective is able to provide nudging and reminders that are really specific to that pairing to when they've scheduled that meeting. Following the meeting, we are offering rich note taking. So we know that pairs want more than a checkbox in terms of conversation topics. And so conversation logging this year, one of our biggest product updates is to really make sure that pairs have not just a checkbox, but can provide more content as it relates to their conversations. And with our beta partners, we're seeing that pairs are logging 1,600 characters or more on average. So really seeing that rich note taking become a priority with pairs. Um, I know Middlesex and Greenfield are going to talk about this a little bit as well, but one of the other mechanisms to get information back to campuses is through our flagging system. This is a mentor's way of raising their hand and reporting concerns for their mentee. These flags get triaged on campuses. They get directly sent to emails as they're reported. That can come to folks like Holly and Tiffany. It can also go to a student's advisor or to other specific campus offices like a well-being office or advising. And then finally, we are really creating transparency and autonomy within the mentorship journey. So not just making meaning, but also making sure that there is shared and transparent mentorship journey documented for both pairs to access. So we'll talk a little bit more about what this looks like at Greenfield and at Middlesex, but definitely a big part of what we do, like I mentioned, is not just matching folks, but helping them make meaning out of their match. All right, so let's dive in and hear from some of our partners. Tiffany, we'll start with you. If you could share a little bit more about your mentorship program and how you developed it on your campus.
Yes, sure. So when the Success Fund was launched in 2021, our president knew immediately that he wanted it to include a peer mentor program. And that was based on the success of our tutoring center that was transformed from a professional tutoring center to a peer tutoring center. And so we modeled our peer mentor program after that. Once we got our peer mentor program up and running, I soon realized that we were at our limit to what we could do manually. We were spending a lot of time on the matching, a lot of time on the administrative work, and I saw that we were plateauing at the number of mentees. We were at around 130 tops, and we really couldn't get past that every semester. So that's what I used when I saw a presentation from Mentor Collective, and they had only a handful of mentors that were meeting with over 500 mentees, and I had 40 mentors meeting with 100. It really sparked my interest. So that's what I used when I pitched this to upper administration. The whole goal was to keep our success coaches available at peak times to meet with students as opposed to doing all of this administrative work. So that's really how we set up the program. We modeled it after our peer tutoring, and we purchased Mentor Collective about a year ago today to help us scale up. And you can see on the slide, we've already done that. We're just shy of a year, or we may have hit a year. We launched last February, and we're already at 253 mentees, whereas before I never saw really past 130.
Thanks, Tiffany. I'm curious if you could share more about how folks get matched or what criteria you've been thinking about as it relates to that.
Yes, so before we were trying to match based on academic interest, but then with the Mass Educate and Mass Reconnect, we were finding adult students, and that wasn't really working well with an 18-year-old necessarily. So it got more and more tricky and more work was being spent. So when we set up with Mentor Collective, we really spent a lot of time on the matching survey. We were able to customize questions, and the students now, when they take the matching survey, they say what they want. Of course, we thought, right, of course, the students want someone who has their major, but that's not necessarily true. Some of our mentees want students that speak the same language as them, or that have kids, or that are, returning adult students. So that's why we went with the matching survey, and that's what we use now, and it's really worked out.
Thanks so much, Tiffany. And I'm curious, as you look at engagement, how are you thinking about that on your campus?
The engagement is it's doing very well. I see that mentors are logging conversation at all hours of the night, which I think is fine, right? Because we're a union environment. Our staff works 9 to 5, and so do our students, quite frankly. So they don't need help between 9 to 5. They need help at 11 o'clock at night. And the mentor may or may not be there. That's depending on the relationship that they set up with each other. But I definitely think engagement is up now that the mentors can simply text to log the conversation. Before, we used to have them submit spreadsheets. At one point, we transitioned to the Navigate. We're an EAB Navigate school. And I will mention that our Mentor Collective data is transferred to our Navigate system, which makes it easy for reporting.
That's awesome. I'm so glad to hear that you took advantage of that. All right. So, Holly, would love to hear a little bit more from you on how you developed peer mentorship on your campus and came to work with Mentor Collective. Take it away.
Absolutely, thanks. So, likewise, we started in fall of 21 when the Success Fund kind of came online, and I started with 6 mentors. We have a little bit of a different model than Tiffany. So those 6 mentors, we assigned them to the whole new success cohort. So of the populations that we were focused on in success, we assigned 223 students to those students. Now, those students didn't opt in. We just automatically assign new students to a mentor. We do try to take age into account, but we, don't have the capacity to do a lot more, or didn't at that time have a lot more custom matching besides that. It did take a little while for students to understand what a peer mentor could do or why they should respond to them. So it took us a couple of semesters to build up our engagement. But it did build up over the next couple semesters and years. And likewise, we've been able to increase our peer mentors, and typically in any given semester, we have 10 to 12. This 15 here is the total number for this academic year. So we continue to use default matching for new students who are in identified vulnerable populations, so they don't have to take multiple steps to connect to another student or to seek help. And then our mentors really actively do a lot of proactive outreach. So there's no obligation that the person responds to their peer mentor, but many of them do, of course. And so they can sort of engage at whatever level they're comfortable with. We do find, though, that in spite of having pretty busy, uncomplicated lives at, different points in their life cycle, they don't seem to add to their students' sense of overwhelm. Instead, it really seems to provide that reassurance and connection. I think that's related to what you were saying, is that students are more comfortable with peers. And so even in the beginning, when we were only using email to reach out, we were worried about sending too many emails. And we find actually that the students don't resent email when they come from their peers as much. And very, very few students have asked us to stop sending emails. So, but the beauty of then partnering, again, like I was limited by me being the person who is running this program by myself. Not only is the matching kind of out of my hands, but also being able to text without having to share personal phone numbers has really, again, lowered the threshold, which is kind of what our focus always is in terms of asking for help. So peer mentors can send out either a group text, or once they've established that connection, they can send one-on-one texts easily throughout the day to their mentees. And that seems to really increase the sort of points of contact for them. And they are able to do meetings on Zoom or in person as well. But I think the sort of casual contact of somebody who's just looking out for them, especially in their first semester, has been really valuable. What else can I tell you?
I think that's great, Holly. I really appreciate you calling out the differences between yourselves and Middlesex, because it seems like you've really thought about how does mentorship work on my campus and for my students. And so I appreciate the ways that you all have really customized and configured your programs to meet your needs. So moving us forward a little bit, we've got a couple of questions for our panelists. So Tiffany, would love to hear from you. How does mentorship strengthen existing campus support services without adding additional complexity on your end?
Yes, I think I alluded to that in my last response. We're extending our outreach to out after hours, weekends, etc., because the mentors text and meet when it's convenient for them. So it strengthens what we already have here because us coaches meet with the mentors. We train the mentors every other Friday. We have meetings, and then we feel confident that they're able to answer questions in those off hours. And I think the other thing I would speak about would be the flags. We haven't talked about the flags yet, but that was something we were not successfully able to replicate on our own manually before the product. But this is allowing us to be more proactive. I'll know immediately if a student wants to drop out or change their major, as opposed to these things coming to us maybe a week later, 2 weeks later, or maybe not at all, to be honest with you. It could be something that, got missed in the spreadsheets and other things that we tried to set up. So it just really gets the resources to the student and in the way that they need it.
Thanks, Tiffany, and I appreciate you calling out the flags component. Holly, anything you would add here for what this looks like at Greenfield?
Yeah, absolutely. So with the flags, peer mentors make active referrals and warm handoffs, but it's also really important, I think, for our peer mentors to be modeling and normalizing those kinds of help-seeking behaviors. Students are still hesitant to ask for help, as you said, just because the resources are there doesn't mean they feel comfortable or know how to access them. And it does seem like an added level of complexity from an administrative standpoint, but I think again, it lowers the threshold for students if they're uncertain, but they have like a non-threatening, easy to access resource, like Tiffany said, even after hours sometimes, um, that person can just validate and reinforce that asking for help is the right choice for that student. And that's really important, I think. And also be able to speak to like how they've used that resource or their friends have used that resource or, like how you don't have to wait until you're struggling or whatever the barrier might be. And they can specifically talk to the student in advance about like what barriers they are seeking and kind of do a little bit of that triage of like what's the right resource for this person. Do they need to talk to the library about how to do research, or do they need to go to peer tutoring about how to outline a paper, or what is actually their problem they're having, or do they need to just like figure out some, time management strategies, which, the peer mentor might be able to help them themselves on that. So it can be like a range of things. And I think there's not usually a one size fits all. And the peer mentor can kind of help tease that out if they're trained properly to do that.
Absolutely. Thank you, Holly. I appreciate that you're also sharing, the mentor can do a little bit of that initial advising of like, oh, actually, it sounds like peer tutoring might be the best fit for you. Whereas that student might be finding themselves kind of being bopped between campus offices. And so they can really get the support that they need more quickly than having to kind of go ask those questions to a support staff on campus. So we've got one final question and then a poll for you all, and really curious to hear some of those unexpected impacts of implementing scaled mentorship on your campus. Shelley, I'll let you go first.
Great, thank you. I'm going to start with the peer mentors themselves. As the students, we center them in everything we do. And, student leaders always report a sense of, personal impacts, better academic scores, but we've just seen that off the charts now. It's increasing their sense of belonging even more so, and their academic outcomes. And then it's encouraging our peer mentors, because they're having such a good experience, to go on and take on bigger leadership roles. It's starting to become a pathway for student government, which is great. We are also getting really timely and multi-level data that has been hard to capture previously, quantity and content of student contact. It's been really valuable for just program evaluation in general. And then for Holly with direct mentor supervision, that piece has been really amazing to capture that. And then, I mean, I think we've referred to this before as having the texting capability. So we are preserving confidential contacts, but we can have students making that direct one-on-one contact. They're building a rapport and trust faster because the contact is more frequent and is in a modality that the students actually want. And I loved Tiffany's point to the fact that it can be 2 o'clock in the morning if that's when they want to contact each other. I'm not doing it at 2 o'clock in the morning, but I love that we offer that for our students. So I think that, for me, there's been, and I'm sure that I could list 5 more if we had the time, because I was, remember the skeptic going in. But I love it. I think it's provided a great service for both our mentors and our mentees, and made the work that we do a little bit easier. So.
Yeah, thank you so much, Shelley. I appreciate you also calling out the student leadership component because, like Tiffany mentioned, right, your students are potentially working for most of the day or caregiving or whatever that may be, and so this is an opportunity for them to increase their leadership skills, to get access to leadership opportunities that are not requiring them to be on campus for multiple hours during the day. They can do it from their phone or from their device, and so there's a real opportunity to provide a leadership opportunity to those mentors, not just to get them paid, but also to get them an opportunity to kind of flex those leadership skills. Tiffany, anything you would add before we close out?
I would just talk about the flags again. I don't know that it's an unexpected impact, but one thing that, we kind of always knew the times that students were struggling and what they were struggling with. But now that we've had this product in the fall semester and a spring semester, we can look at these flags now and we can see, okay, this is around the time when students are thinking of changing their major, when they're dropping out, when they're struggling with this, and we can plan our programming accordingly. And I don't think that I had quite thought about that. So I think that's an unexpected impact.
Yeah, that shifting from reactive and obviously flags are important in triaging them on a regular basis, but also what do the flags tell us, right? What do we see in the first 2 weeks of the semester that maybe we could provide proactive resources for? We talked a little bit about text messages already. Mentor Collective can send out text messages on your behalf, so letting the students know about existing resources or existing events that you are having that typically, not every student would be attending, and so definitely want to help highlight some of those existing resources happening on campus. Holly, anything we missed before we wrap up?
No, I think I appreciate what Tiffany just said because I'm like, oh, okay, we've only had it for one semester, but now I can see down the line that we can use this data in a lot of other ways. So it's exciting.
Absolutely. All right. Well, I'm going to hand it back over to Christine, but just want to thank our lovely panelists today for sharing more about their mentorship journeys on their campuses. And we hope to do more of this. So we hope to engage our success campuses more and more and share more about what's happening at Greenfield and Middlesex and hopefully your campus as well.
Woo! What a great session. So on the screen, I have a poll for everyone today. I hope that you can go ahead and answer it for us. But on the next screen, Erin, I'm also going to share where we'll be on the road as well. If you are at any of these conferences, please come out and reach out to us. We'll be happy to say hello, grab some swag, and yeah, just ask us some wonderful questions that you want to iterate on in the session today or another question that. With that being said, thank you so much for attending today's webinar. We are right on the end of it. I'm going to let this poll run for just 10 more seconds here. And yeah, thank you for that reaction. Love it.
All
All
right.
right. Thank you,
Bye
everyone.
all.
I
Have a
hope you
great
have a
rest of
great
your
week.
day.
Thank you. Bye.